Good afternoon, good morning, and good night. My name is Isabel Starck, and welcome to the Empower Hour. So happy to have you here. This is our second episode. Last week was our first and inaugural, and I wanted to say thank you to all who have joined on from all over the world. We had people chiming in from Singapore, United States, and Europe. So I was very excited to see just the culmination of all the women around the world being here live, asking their questions, and showing their support. So thank you very much, ladies, for joining. Now, following the session last week, I've received a number of different messages, had a number of phone calls with a lot of you ladies, and there were some issues that came up during watching. So every 15 minutes or so, I'm going to remind myself to remind everyone how to ask a question and how to connect live if you're watching via YouTube. So for starters, if you're watching via Google+, you'll see a box with my image and a live little button up at the top. If you would like to ask a question, all you need to do is hover over the Google squares. So it's basically a grid of 9 squares. Hover over that, click on it, and select Q&A. I will make that active now. There we go. So you should see the Q&A bar on the right-hand side of your screen. For those of you watching the replay, I don't believe the screen actually shows up, but I will actually read out loud the questions that are coming up so that you have an idea what I'm answering. Next, sorry about that, my eyes have a little teary self today. Anyhow, if you are watching via YouTube, what you will need to do is you'll need to pay attention at the bottom of your screen, either the left or the right-hand side, I'm not sure. There'll be a box there that says join the conversation. All you have to do is select that box. It will open up another window and bring you into the Google+ screen. Once that is actually activated, you will be able to see the Q&A bar and type in your questions as needed. So again, about every 15 minutes, I'll be reminding you about that in case you've joined a little bit later. So please ask your questions away. I will get started because I did have a number of questions that were asked previously, and we'll go from there. So again, thank you very much for joining. Very excited to have you all here, and I hope that what we are able to share today will help you in your life and in your business to move forward and move through some blocks that you might have. So here we go. So for starters, one of the first questions that I actually received follow-up to last week was coming to the decision of actually opening up our own shop. My husband and I became entrepreneurs just about 6 years ago. And prior to that, we were running another eyewear distribution business here in Canada. We're part owners, but not full entrepreneurs. So our first real take at entrepreneurship solely was about 6 years ago. And really what brought us to that decision was just the fact that we were really enjoying the fact of being kind of our own bosses. The other parties that owned part of our business here were in Italy. Therefore, we had pretty much free range as to what we did, how we did it, where we traveled to, and we were really enjoying that. So in addition to that, my husband always had a dream of working with cars, and I mentioned to you last week that we started a car tuning business. So it was at the point where the industry was changing. So in the optical industry, there were some changes happening with other manufacturers of eyewear. And we were at a point where we needed to either play with the big fish or look to get out. I mean, it was really a smart move for us to move at the point that we did, because the whole industry, as I mentioned, was changing. Our profits were diminishing, and the size of our business was just pretty much stagnant. And we knew that was the clear point. So we assessed our situation, the safety net that we currently had, we owned our home, and we just kind of thought, okay, if we can find a buyer, then we'll make the jump. And interestingly enough, my largest client at that point was interested in purchasing a distribution. And it was in common conversation, probably over dinner, that, brought it up. What do you think about this idea? And what I really feel is that it really just started with the intention. My husband and I had a dream. We thought about this. We said, what would allow us to actually move out of being shackled to the business? And we just kind of threw it out there to the universe. And the interesting thing about throwing it out there to God or the universe is that it has a way of meeting you where you're at. If your desire is very strong and you desire to either move on or start something new, you kind of plant a seed and it either is stillborn or it continues to grow and it gets fertilized and it grows even larger. So what I feel is the conversation that I had with this client of mine, I really created that. It was maybe in my subconscious, in the back of my mind, thinking, who might be interested in purchasing, be able to purchase this and actually work with it and build it and use it in their business. He had a retail location with about 5 stores, and it was ideal for his business. So we landed in our lap. Of course, it didn't happen overnight. It took a number of phone calls, a number of meetings, and a number of number crunching, really with our accountants and lawyers to decide what the company was worth and what it was valued at and what we would be able to walk away with. So with that, we were able to start or sell the business, sell our portions, our shares, and start our new business. The nice thing about that is there were a few months of overlap. And that was very helpful to know that we had, call it a safety net, but that our bills, our standard bills, were just really taken care of during that time. We had already signed a 5-year lease on the new business. We were starting a retail location. We had a distribution throughout the country of Canada. And we were bringing on employees. So it was really nice to be able to start something. And we were literally at that point working 2 jobs. So we would start the day at our eyewear distribution and end the day at our car tuning place. And that's where I think I mentioned last week that I'm very familiar with the 12 and 14-hour work days, because that's what it really became to be, which I was very happy about doing. I love being able to give back to ourselves, and you know that you always have a purpose when you're working for your own business. So where am I going with this? Basically, it's about setting the intention and being open to receive what God or the universe might place in front of you, such as this customer who was interested in buying the business, which then allowed us to start our business and move on. So I hope that answers your question about coming to the decision of starting our own business. It was really just an idea, a thought, a desire as to what kind of lifestyle we wanted to live. At that point, we had no children. So we threw it out there and we made it happen. So I hope that answered your question. Thank you very much for asking. I believe this one came from the Facebook group. Let's see here. Well, this is a great question. And this is kind of piggybacking on the previous one. And the question is, after opening your own shop, were you in the red for a while? The easy answer is yes, we were in the red for a while. We came to the business with a lump sum of money, but to start a business, there are costs involved, especially a car tuning place. We needed to buy equipment, we needed to hire staff, We needed to sign a lease on a building, which came with deposits. We needed to buy product that we needed to sell. So there were some definite upfront costs that needed to be laid out. And in addition to that, we really utilized our credit cards to the hilt and tried to establish some credit with the vendors that we were starting to sell their product. And it worked quite well in the beginning. Although we were in the red, we were still functioning enough with money incoming and money outgoing that we were able to pay the bills and keep that dance going. It's very rare, I think I mentioned last week as well, that it's very rare that somebody comes to start a business and they have, say, a year's worth of income stashed away or revenue to be able to function. It would be ideal for you to have that. At least 3 months worth where you're not worrying about, rent at the business, rent at home. If you have a brick and mortar and you are the only source of income, and any of the other activities that take place. I know that with the distribution that we had, there are minimums, investments that need to be made for you to actually sign on with, say, a new vendor. And these minimums are there for a reason. We know that as well. If you take a bigger investment in something, you're going to be more motivated to sell it, as that's how we contracted our eyewear people. But when it's your money and you know that you're signing the checks, it's a little bit tougher, but it did motivate you. It really did motivate us to make certain that the money that we did have and the product that we did have had a certain value, and we needed to keep turning that product to be able to actually live our lives and keep the business running. So, were we in the red for a while? Yes, we were. So, I hope that answers your question there. I'm going to move on to the next one now. Actually, let me just take a quick look over here. Okay. I'm going to take a little pause and just let all of you viewers know that if you're watching through Google Plus and you would like to ask a question, I have activated the Q&A box. So if you go to the screen where my face is and you hover right above, next to the live button, you'll see the Google squares. It's a series of 9 squares. If you hover over that and you activate the Q&A app, then you are allowed to actually answer a question or ask a question. Show up on my screen. And if you're watching through YouTube, what you'll want to do if you'd like to answer a question or ask a question, is you should pay attention to the bar that's down here at the bottom somewhere. It will say join the conversation. It's a yellow box, yellow typing, yellow text. If you just click on that, what will happen is a new window will pop up. It will bring you to the Google Plus page. And in the Google Plus page, again, you'll have to search at the upper part of the screen for the Google squares, the little grid of 9 squares. Hover over that, activate the Q&A app, and quickly you'll be able to open up the sidebar for asking questions. So I hope you have found it there. All right, so going on to the next questions. This is a nice one. And it has to do more with kind of being in alignment. The question was, do you have any morning rituals that you partake in because you work from home? And yes, I do. I have found that my most creative time is really in the morning. However, with a young child, sometimes it's a 5-minute morning that I have to myself. It might be an hour at some points. But for the most part, I know that when I shower, I'm definitely alone. And those, I have to say, are the most creative parts of my morning. My morning ritual involves waking up, saying just a slight prayer or meditation for the day as to what I would like to accomplish. If I do have enough time, I like to quickly glance over my calendar for the day and see if there's anything that I need to add in there that maybe wasn't done the week or the day before, or that I could do today, or something that just popped up. I do actually quickly check my emails as well. As a business owner, I know there are some people that say, oh, I don't touch my phone or my email. I don't take a look until the workday starts. But our businesses, they're not just in our time zone anymore. I have clients that are all over the world. So therefore, if there is an emergency or there's a question asked, I do need to be in contact with them, or at least to be aware, is it something that I need to address immediately, or can it be something that'll wait for later when my true desk time begins? So again, I check that, I scan it. No emergencies, I do put it down. My morning time with my family is really important. It's at least 1 hour or 2 hours that we get to spend time as a family. And it's very valuable. My husband is still working at the other business, mostly on his own. And he works very late nights sometimes. So therefore, our weekends and our mornings are really family time. So I've chosen to at least block out an hour of, making coffee, playing with our son, talking about the day, and from there we move on. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, showers during my shower time is when a lot of creativeness comes out of me. I've gotten to the point where I either have my phone in my bedroom, so when I jump out of the shower, I can quickly make notes. But if I don't have that available, those messages that come to me in the shower are really, they're strong. They really stick with me. If I need to do some memory lapsing on that, there's certain key things that I do to remind myself of an activity that I need to do, or an idea that might pop up, or some research that I might want to look into regarding maybe a new program or an offering, and even a post on my business page or the Facebook group. So I've heard that there are a lot of healing properties being around water and being able to really anchor in and discover yourself. So I've really found that time really helps. So if all else fails and the only time you get to yourself is really the shower, it's really enough to be in there 5 or 10 minutes and really download what it is that you desire to do. So I hope that helps for morning ritual. That's mine, please. Thank you very much for asking that question too. Let's see here. This was a question from one of my dear friends who I actually saw literally hours after the live broadcast last week. And what she asked was, how do I decide what I want to do? Now, obviously, I know a little bit of background about her, but I think in general, when you're really deciding what your life purpose is, what it is that you want to do, I mean, the first thing that you might consider doing is really just reflecting on what it is that you currently have, what stage you are in life, what surroundings are you in, who is in your circle, what is it that you're doing, what hats are you wearing? For many of us, we're entrepreneurs, we're mothers, we're wives, and for those of us with young children, it's very easy for us to put on that role or that hat of mother and really feel like there's no other time for anything else. And one of the things that I've really practiced a lot is self-care. Taking care of yourself so that you can give to others is extremely important. From having your nails done, to getting a massage, to even just giving yourself 20 minutes to go outside and walk if needed, to just kind of clear your air, or even reading a book. That is really, I mean, I've got my books here, but that is really like a novelty. And I think I mentioned last week that for myself, I really turn to audiobooks a lot now. And they're very useful. I keep them in the car with me. I've got them on my phone. And they're very useful and helpful. And even though I may not be, or I might be distracted when I'm listening at times, it's going into your subconscious. So I listen to books over and over again. I have a few on rotation, and then I throw some new ones in there. But obviously it's best to sit and listen. But if not, your subconscious is getting it. And you might really get the download when you need it the most. So back to the question about how do you know what it is that you want to do? So once you've actually assessed where you are, really ask yourself, is there anything wrong with that? There might not be anything wrong with that. You might be in a stage in life where you've already been successful. You're financially set. You've learned everything that you want to learn. Of course, we never stop learning, but you feel really content with what it is that you know. You have a great circle of friends. Life is happy. Life is happy. And maybe again, there may not be anything wrong with that. Or you might look and say, well, everything is wonderful and I love it. And yeah, I'm financially set. I've got my family and we live in the house that we love. And I'm driving the cars that I want. We travel. Everything is great. But there's just something missing for you. And for that, I would say to really ask yourself and sit with yourself and ask, what is this piece that's missing? Where am I not being fulfilled? It might be intellectually. It might be physically. It might be romantically. And it's really good to be able to assess, evaluate, and then take little chunks and eat the elephant one bite at a time. Say, okay, maybe it's romance. Maybe I'm not completely fulfilled in my relationship anymore. Well, spend a little bit of time understanding why. Understanding your side of it, and maybe understanding your partner's side. It could, if you're looking for that purpose in life, which, I have a lot of experience with that because I've always known that I wanted to help people, and I have helped people throughout my career, but really finding that spark, what really filled me up with what it is that I wanted to do in life, and that's life coaching. When I realized that that's what I have been doing all my life, and what I could do as a career, I was so excited. My husband kind of looked at me and thought, okay, so now you're going to get paid for everything that you do? And I thought, well, yeah, I guess, it's possible. And then, I started to research this and signing up for certifications and doing a lot of reading and a lot of self and inner work. And I will say that even whether it was life coaching or not, one thing that I've done for decades now is a lot of self-development work. I believe that the better you know yourself, the easier it will be for you to interact with others and even know others and how to help them if needed, or how to even communicate with them. So when I recommend self-development, it doesn't mean you got to go sign up for a 1-year program where you got to be in, do this silent mode for a full week straight, or go to a yoga retreat and be there for 5 days. It's not just that. It's really doing the specific work to fulfill that piece that you feel is missing. And it might be surprising to you. You might think it's your relationship, but in the end, a lot of this is rooted in our childhood relationships. You might really think that you're not able to connect with your spouse or your significant other, and it really has nothing to do with them, but more to do with the relationship that you have with your mother or your father, maybe your grandparents. And I see that like as a blessing, because it gives you the opportunity to actually dive into that and really discover why you're feeling that way. And if it's not too late, maybe to even mend that relationship that you had when you were a child. So I do welcome you to take a look at a little bit of self-development. There's a number of different books that I recommend, and it's specific to where you're at in life and what issues you might be dealing with. If one thing that comes to mind is there's a book by Debbie Ford, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, and this is a book that allows you, or really tells you about your dark side, because although, you know, in public in general, you know, of course our best foot is forward. There might be some times, you know, mama bear comes out or something happens, but for the most part, a lot of us don't talk about our dark side. A lot of us can't share that dark side with sometimes even our closest friends or family. But this book actually takes you through exercises to really embrace and love that inner bee that you might have. And some of us have it. You know, we really do. I can look back at my past and see, yeah, she has been there. And instead of saying, I shouldn't be that way, I don't want to be that person, you know, really just being compassionate with her because she is a part of you. So with that, I hope that gives you a little bit of a roundabout explanation as to really finding what it is that you want to do in life or what you desire to do. And I know I just really touched more on self-development, and this might actually lead a little bit more into that as well, but you know, journaling, something that's a wonderful tool to be able to sit and write to yourself. You can write to yourself as you are now. You can write to yourself as, you know, 60 or 80-year-old you. You can write to yourself as, you know, 5 or 6-year-old you. And just really tell yourself, you know, where do you want to be when you grow up? Or look back at your life and what are you happy that you accomplished? Or what are you sad that you didn't accomplish? And this will actually open up some channels for you to really discover what path you might be leading yourself on and giving yourself permission to take. So I hope that helped. Thank you very much for the question. I think that was a wonderful question. I think a lot of us deal with those issues. Me personally, I can say that I have so many different interests and desires and loves, really. And just the fact that I'm pretty accomplished at a lot of things. I'm decent or great or good at a lot of things, and I'm really proud of that. You know, the saying that they say, if you want something done right, just do it yourself. Well, I was just kind of a do-it-yourself kind of girl. I did a lot of stuff myself, and I was happy doing it because I got to learn a lot. And yeah, so just kind of be open to it, allow yourself to go through the motions, feel it, and you know, the doors will open. And don't be afraid to walk through the door and actually discover that a little bit further for yourself. Now let's take a look here. We're at about 12:30, so what I want to do is actually take this moment to remind everybody that if you would like to ask a question, if you are watching through Google Hangouts, so it's Google Plus Hangouts, to ask a question, you'll need to hover over the 9 squares on the screen, activate the app or plugin that says Q&A. Once that is clicked, you'll open up a chat box. And through the chat box, you can actually ask a question. Now, if you're watching through YouTube on the live feed, you cannot actually ask a question through YouTube's Q&A. They're not linked that way, not yet, as of yet. However, there is a box at the bottom of the screen here that says join the conversation. And to join the conversation, all you have to do is click on that box. Another window will open up, take you to the Google Plus Hangout page, which is this one here. And at the upper right hand or left hand corner of your screen, you'll see the Google squares. There's 9 squares that will be activated. All you have to do is hover over those squares with your mouse and select the Q&A application. And once you select that, a chat box will open on the right-hand side where you can type in your questions. So, okay. So, the next question comes from, where is this one from? This one is from the UK, asking me about time management. Time management is the big one. I know this one in particular is time management with a child again. As well, even pre-children. I know that our time is our most precious commodity, really. We only have 24 hours in a day, 8 of those go to sleeping, or should at least. And if we are not able to accomplish what we desire in those 16 waking hours, they just get added onto the list for the next day. So one exercise for time management is to actually first start with creating a perfect, ideal day for yourself. And really that involves breaking it down into 24 hours on a piece of paper, crossing out your sleeping time, making note of the time that you woke up, and writing everything down. Like if you had a perfect day that you could create and you had the power to do that, what would it be like for you to actually create that? And put in the yoga or exercise if that is something that you love to do. Put in time with friends. Definitely put in time if you have a job or you work or you even have a home business. Make sure that you set aside time to work on it and actually dedicate quality hours to working. And fill in the gaps with maybe going to pick up groceries or going to pick up your son from school or daughter, or surprising your husband for lunch. Things like that, so that you can really see what your intention is going forward for an ideal day. So I like to do this exercise every few months. You don't want to do it too often, but if you really find yourself in overwhelm and you feel that you're not getting anything done, it probably has to do with poor planning. So I really welcome you to take a look at this exercise, really plan out what your ideal day would be like, and go forth with trying to implement that if possible. Now, not every day is going to look like your ideal day. We have different activities that take place at different times. You might have ballet recitals to go to, or maybe you're going to the opera, movies, or date night with your significant other. So not every day is going to look the same, but at least it gives you a little bit of a template as to when you're feeling that overwhelm come up, that you can pause, reflect on your ideal day, and really give yourself credit for what it is that you are accomplishing ideally, and then work in where needed and adjust your schedule so that you can be accomplished and feel good about the time that you are spending in your day with your friends, with your loved ones, and also with yourself. Because the relationship that you have with yourself is the most important. So I hope that helped your time management question. Excuse me, I'm going to grab some water. So the next question I had was actually about starting a business. And I got asked, what's the first thing that you should do when starting a business? Well, obviously the first thing is making the decision that you want to start your own business. But following that, the next thing you should really, really look at is why you want to start it. Like, really spend time on that, discovering why you want to start your own business. Not just financial reward, or you want to get fame, or not those reasons. More so, like, what is this business? What's the big why? What is it going to give back to you? What are you going to achieve? What are you going to feel inside? What are you going to share with the world? What is going to light you up when it's gloomy outside and you just don't feel like doing work? What is going to propel you forward to be able to stick to your plan and create your business? So that would be my first step is, well, first one, decision. And then really the second one is to get very, very clear on your why. There is a great exercise called, it's Simon Sinek. If you're on YouTube, you can just search for Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, and his talk, a TED Talk, is called Start With Why. He goes through an exercise, Start With Why exercise, and it's really interesting to see how most marketers work from the outside in, when what he's proposing is that you actually work from the inside out. It's more in alignment with it's more heart-centered, it's just more in alignment with you and what it is that you want to create. So once you've discovered your why, what's going to actually keep you getting out of bed in the morning is developing how. So how are you going to develop this business? How are you going to service clients? How are you going to sell your products? How are you going to do it? What is the tool, the method, the vehicle to get you to accomplish your why? And then it comes to what. What are you going to sell? What kind of programs? Like, really breaking down, if it's a product, it might be bow ties for babies. It might be an Etsy shop. It might be a car shop, or even services, whether it's online or in service, or in person. Sorry. So again, it goes from why, which is inner, to how, and to what. And I really do welcome you to take a look at that video when you have a chance. Now, the next thing that I recommend for my clients is to have the conversation with your advisors. Now, I'm not talking about your mom, your grandma, or your dad. I'm talking about interviewing and searching out for a local lawyer, attorney, and an accountant. These two professionals will be people who will actually watch you grow your business. And if you're able to start this conversation with them early, they will probably be able to save you tons of money in problems that might have arisen had you not had contracts in place, save the money to pay your taxes, the list goes on. So during the conversation that this came up in this week, the lawyer and accountant conversation is a big one to have. And I'm actually working on a program that's going to give you an outline as to what questions to actually ask. And depending on what service industry you're in, what to really pay attention to. Key things that'll come up, but just the tips and tricks that I've used in my businesses to create my business successfully. So I hope that helped creating your business and what the first steps are. Let's see. Next question, let's take a look here. All right. Now, I think this question actually came from someone who knows me well, because you asked, what kind of lists do you make? And For those of you who don't know me that well yet, I am an avid list maker. This list making activity really started very young. I was exposed to it from my father, and I can remember myself sitting at the breakfast table maybe on a Saturday, and we had to divvy up our chores and what it is that we wanted to accomplish for the weekend and what fun things we wanted to do. You know, I have two siblings, and it was my father raising us. So, you know, we would bring out a piece of paper and a pencil and make a list. Okay, you know, we had yard work to do, we had dishes to do, we had floors, vacuuming, dusting, you know, the list goes on and on and on. And we had to, you know, maybe go to the local grocery store or go to the farmer's market. Basically, we just kind of made a plan. And that was my first take on list making. And I loved it. I love making lists. I'm the list queen. You can ask my family and my friends. So with lists, there are tons of lists that you can make. And you can just obviously grab a clear piece of paper. But what I've done with my list is I always keep one handy. Always, always, always on my daily plan. I keep a list handy of just random ideas that come to mind. I don't have my list on me. I've got Evernote that I've been using more frequently. And as ideas pop in my head, like I mentioned, you know, I'm taking a shower and some idea pops in my head. Well, I've been able to categorize those in Evernote, whereas if it's an idea for a newsletter or an idea for a post on Facebook or a program, then I can go specifically there, write down the idea, maybe even if I've done some research on it, I can post a link to where it is. It'll take me and kind of get the juices flowing again to get my gears moving. So I really welcome you to take a look at that. As I mentioned, I use Evernote, and I also use this handwritten lists to stay on track. With my list making, one of the classics that I do is, yes, I do it on the weekend. Saturday will come, or maybe even Friday night, but most of the time it's Saturday morning. And I'm sitting and I'm having my coffee, and you know, it's relaxed. We don't have to rush to get anywhere. And I really take a look at the weekend and say, you know, what things we have planned, and then what I want to do. And typically my lists are very long because, you know, you only have 2 real days for the weekend, and there's just so much that you want to do, including working on my business. Any free moment I have, I really try to work on my business. I'm loving growing it, and you know, the connections that I'm making. So, but all those things need to be planned out because, as I mentioned earlier, self-care is very important, and you need to be able to balance your work and your personal life. So, on Saturday morning, I'll dump out maybe 20, 30 things on my list. Yes, and yes, 20 or 30 things to do. And then I just kind of start grouping them. So within my list, I start categorizing them. I might give them a star or a circle or a plus. And then I start looking at the areas where I need to travel. Like if I needed to go buy shoes and I wanted to check out these shoes at a specific store, then I would kind of make a note, okay, this is in the eastern part of the town. And then this one is also involving travel. That one's actually downtown. And maybe this one's over at this large mall that's nearby us. And then you start kind of piecing together, okay, well, if we go to this large mall in the afternoon, then you can actually have, you know, an early dinner there, and then you can walk around, and you create this flow, whereas you can go throughout your day and really have a plan and be able to accomplish a lot of the things on your list. And for most list makers, we love crossing things off the list or checking them off. Even writing them down, just check them off. That's one thing that I miss on Evernote. You know, it might just be a little check mark there with a little finger push, but that's why I really love handwriting things out and using lists that way. So that's the way I use my lists. I love it, and I think it probably would have been really interesting for me to keep all my lists and just to see how many boxes I would have had by now. I'm sure my dad would have had 10 times as many. So I hope that helps with your list-making question. I see we have about 15 minutes left. I do want to welcome those viewers that are on and would like to ask a question. If you are watching through YouTube and you want to join the conversation, there is a box at the bottom of the screen with yellow text. Just select the box. It says join the conversation. You'll be kind of brought into a Google Plus Hangout screen, live broadcast. And at the upper right or upper left corner of the screen, you'll see the Google squares. So you'll see a number of 9 squares. Hover over that with your mouse and select the Q&A app. By selecting the Q&A app, all you got to do is click on it. A chat box will open on the right-hand side, and then you can type in your question. So also, for those of you watching live on Google+, that's exactly what you do as well. Hover over the 9 squares, select the Q&A app, and voila. Again, we have 15 minutes if you have any questions. I'm going to continue on with the questions that were written in prior. Hiring. This was a great question. This actually has been coming up a lot lately, and hiring staff. So the question was, did we run our businesses by ourselves or did we hire other staff? We hired other staff. It became quickly apparent to us for our shop that we needed somebody there as a backup or to be able to allow us the freedom to go meet with the accountant or go to the bank or maybe go meet with a new vendor. So quickly on, you have to make that decision about hiring. Now, if you have a service-based business, maybe you're working out of your home, one of the first hires that you might make will actually be a personal assistant or a virtual assistant who can maybe take over some of the exercises such as scheduling or working up spreadsheets, maybe dictating, dictaphone. There's a ton of other exercises that your VA can actually do. They can do research for you. If you are going to be writing a blog, for example, or going to be speaking live, maybe you want to do a little bit of research about a certain topic, and your VA can actually do that for you as well. So with hiring, this is something that it took me some time to really get the flow of it. I had a great teacher, and she taught me, gosh, I'm dating myself now. It was probably 15, 16 years ago. Just by watching her and how it is that she actually interviewed people and how she processed and decided who to hire and why they were great and why they weren't. Just watching her example really gave me a huge insight as to who's right for you and who's not. And I've said this recently, and I'll say it again, that unless you are hiring a doctor or a lawyer who needs to actually be certified with the bar to be able to practice law, it's much easier to hire somebody for attitude. But what I've really found in the past is typically any human resources person goes out and they have a great outline as to who it is that they want to hire, what specific skills set they need, what experiences they need, and you're inundated by literally hundreds of resumes. And what do? We scan through them and we scan and okay, we get the best qualities, great. And then the next thing is you take a look and you might have a phone interview with them. And in that phone interview, for me, that's key. Number one, you get to hear this person's voice. You get to get a feel for how they would interact with your customers on the phone, how they will actually integrate within your team. Are they introverted? Are they really quiet? Are they kind of shy? Are they abrupt? And do they come across like they know everything? Or you'll get the idea. A lot can be said for just listening and picking up on cues via the phone. So even without Skype. So just really pay attention to the kind of attitude that's portrayed and during that conversation. And oftentimes, honestly, it wouldn't even be maybe a phone interview. It would just be, I wanted to get them on the phone and find out if they, thank them for sending in their resume and let them know that we were reviewing them and we will be in touch if they were selected for the next round. And oftentimes, just with one or two sentences exchange, you get a good feel for their attitude and how they might work within your team. Now, of course, there are exceptions to the rule, and maybe you're thinking it might be a little harsh to judge somebody that way, but I really do believe in first impressions too. If you're looking for a job, you need to have your best foot forward, of course, but this is catching them off guard and calling them on the phone. This is how they're going to be in reality. So that is an exercise that I put to practice, and from there, I would actually choose the ones that I would like to have come in, and then really try to match up their attitude with their skill set. So I'll finish the sentence of what I was saying earlier, and it's instead of hiring just for skill, and then at the end, sometimes firing because of their bad attitude. If we could just change that around a little bit and hire instead for their positive attitude and give them the skills that they need. They might come with a good skill set, but you might need to fine tune it. Or even teach them something brand new altogether. But if you're able to teach them something brand new altogether, then at least you're teaching them the exact way that you would like to have it done. So hire for attitude. That's my tip for you. All right, so let's see. What do we have here? We have a few more minutes. Any more questions here? I had a question coming from France, and it had to do with a young lady who wanted to start her own business. This woman has never started a business before. She's always just been an employee, has never really wanted or known what she wanted to do in life, but really had some strong feelings to start something. And it was, again, a little bit, I told you my story last week, but it had to do with giving birth to her daughter and starting to just kind of give birth to ideas. So I may have to do a segment on that. One of the questions that she posed was just the fact that she didn't know what she was actually meant to do. She didn't really have the background to start a new business. She had no formal training in any one specific modality or career that she could really hone in on. So although she did go to school, I believe she also did go to university, she just didn't feel fully trained in any one specific mode. And when I spoke to her, what I really expressed to her was just the fact that, desire plays a key role in the success of people's businesses. Desire and persistence and action. There's a few of them, but I would say those three are especially important. Because if your desire, again, your why, your desire is strong enough, it won't matter if it's dark outside or you had 50 no's in a row. You're going to still be able to wake up in the morning, and maybe you're not going to be twinkle toes about it, but you're still going to be inspired to continue on with your business or your goal in life. And then, if you really have that desire, you're going to continue to being persistent and just keeping at it. Maybe one way didn't work, and you're going to continue the next way. There are more than, what do they say, more than 9 ways to skin a cat. So just really think about that. just because we might fail in one area or one method, there are so many others that we may not even be aware of yet. So I've always said that there are really no failures. There's only lessons. So within every failure that we have, there's always some kind of nugget, some little diamond that you can take from there and learn from. So persistence, first desire, then persistence, and then just staying in action. So if you're in continuous action, you live, breathe, eat your desire, it's just with you. It's part of you. It becomes you, and you become it. And you can't look in the mirror without actually seeing your business, because it's really you. So that was my advice to her, and I hope that's actually helped you a bit. And just taking a look at the time, I wanted to put another call out for any last minute questions that you might have, because we will be wrapping up in 4 minutes. And with that, I actually want to kind of give you a heads up as to what the episode for next week is going to be bringing us. First of all, this is the second episode of the Empower Hour with Isabel Starck. Thank you so much for joining. And we will be coming to you live every Wednesday here on Google Hangouts, via also YouTube. So please come and join us live, ask your questions. You can filter some of your questions in ahead of time if you're not going to be able to watch live, so that way I'll at least be able to answer them and you can watch the replay. And you can either find me and post your questions at my Facebook group, which is the Fiercely Feminine Entrepreneur, or on my Facebook business page, which is www.facebook.com/Isabel Starck, just as it's spelled down here. And the last way to actually be in contact with me is through my website. So my website is being redesigned, so if you go there, please forgive the look right now. But if you go to www.isabelstarck.com, I'll actually put up the links here so you have those. They're available here on the right-hand side of the screen. So there's the YouTube channel, the Google Plus channel, and then my website down at the bottom. And I would love to hear, again, what questions you might have for next week. Any comments that you had about, the things that I shared with you today and some of the questions that I answered, and any feedback that you might have. I had a number of conversations following last week's episode, and I was very grateful and thankful to the ladies who reached out, and I was able to make some adjustments. So thank you again for that. Really appreciate it. And the last thing is to tell you about next week's episode. So next week's episode, I'm actually going to be interviewing a dear friend of mine. She has become a very dear friend. And she's actually a psychotherapist and coach. Her name is Patricia Stallman. She hails us here from California, sunny weather. And she's been really a great mastermind partner, a great confidant, somebody that I really look to for support and guidance. And if you've been in the Facebook group, you've actually seen her welcoming people in. She is an admin on the group, and she's going to be sharing with us about a little bit more of a mindful way of approaching life. So I look forward to seeing you all next week and me interviewing her. Make sure you have any of your mindfulness questions ready so that you can ask Patricia. And yeah, really looking forward to that. So with that said, again, I really want to thank you all for participating and showing up today. I know your time is valuable, and I really, really, really appreciate you spending your time with me today. So with that, and a few seconds to go to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to call this a wrap. Thank you again. Good afternoon, good morning, and good night. Have a great one, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Ta-ta.